She stood at the doorway of the small shelter, arms wrapped around her little boy as snowflakes drifted onto her shoulders. The temperature had dropped faster than anyone expected that evening, and the streets of Toronto were already coated in icy white. People rushed past them, tugging scarves closer, not realizing a mother and child were frozen in place, unsure of where to go. When her son whispered, "Mommy, are we going home?" her heart squeezed painfully. She had no home to take him to tonight, no warmth to offer. And when she finally spoke, her voice cracked as she said the words she never imagined she would say, "We'll sleep in the cold tonight." Those words felt like defeat. They tasted like failure on her tongue. She tried to hide her shaking hands as she tightened the thin jacket around her son. She wasn't homeless a month ago. She worked at a bakery, lived in a small apartment, and believed she could handle anything. But then came the rent increase she couldn't afford, the sudden job loss, and the landlord who didn't wait even a week before putting her out. She applied everywhere, begged for extra shifts, even considered moving to another province, but every door seemed to close in her face. Tonight, she was simply a mother with no choice left, praying her child wouldn't feel the cold as sharply as she did. Just as she stepped out toward a bus stop bench to settle in for the night, a man approached from behind, breath swirling in the frosty air. He wore an orange safety jacket, the kind city workers wore, and carried a thermos that steamed even in the biting wind. He paused a few feet away, noticing how the woman subtly pushed her son behind her, trying to protect him from a stranger. His voice was gentle when he spoke, careful not to startle her. "Miss, it's freezing tonight. Are you all right?" She didn't answer. She had learned that admitting she wasn't okay only opened the door to pity, and she hated pity. But when her son's teeth chattered loudly, the man stepped closer, offering the thermos. "It's just hot chocolate. For him," he said. She hesitated, but her son reached out before she could stop him, sipping eagerly, a small hum of comfort escaping him. For the first time in hours, she felt a tiny relief. The man knelt so he was eye level with the boy, not the mother, and smiled warmly. "I'm Mark," he said. "I'm working tonight, clearing sidewalks near the shelter. But I saw you standing here for a long time." The woman finally whispered her name, Emily. Her voice was barely audible over the wind. She didn't explain anything more. She just turned her face away, ashamed and exhausted. Mark didn't ask questions. Instead, he quietly draped his extra insulated work coat over her shoulders. She tried to give it back, but he gently closed her hand around it. "Take it, I've got layers. You don't." When she finally admitted they had nowhere to sleep, she tried to say it as if it didn't hurt. "We'll sleep in the cold tonight," she murmured. But Mark shook his head immediately, his expression firm, almost protective. He leaned in slightly and whispered the words that changed everything, "Not while I'm here." Those 5 words cracked something inside her, something that had been tightly held together by fear and pride. Her eyes burned, and she blinked rapidly, refusing to cry in front of him. Mark stood up and motioned for them to follow. "Come with me. They keep emergency warming rooms open in the community center during nights like this. I'll get you in." She wanted to refuse. She didn't want to be a burden or accept charity. But her son tugged her sleeve, whispering, "Mommy, can we go?" And she knew she couldn't drag him through another night of freezing wind and empty stomachs. So she nodded. The walk to the community center felt longer than the 3 blocks it actually was. Snow whipped against their faces, the streetlights flickered under the storm, and every gust of wind made Emily flinch. But Mark stayed beside them, steady and patient, clearing the path with his shovel as he walked, blocking the wind with his body whenever it blew too hard. To her surprise, he talked to her son the entire way, easy, cheerful small talk about snowmen and hockey, making the boy laugh in a way Emily hadn't heard in weeks. She found herself watching the exchange, feeling warmth spread through her chest despite the cold. When they reached the center, Mark signed them in, explaining the situation to the staff as if they were family he was personally responsible for. He made sure they got a warm room, blankets, hot soup, and a safe cot for the night. He didn't leave until the boy was sleeping, curled under the covers with pink cheeks and a small smile. Emily tucked the blanket around him, then finally turned to Mark. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered, voice trembling. Mark shook his head. "You don't have to. Sometimes people just need someone to show up. Tonight, that's me. Her eyes filled again, but this time she didn't look away. She saw kindness in him, not pity, not judgment, not the cold indifference she'd been facing all month. Just simple human compassion, the kind Canada was known for, but she had almost stopped believing in. Mark gave her his number, telling her about a friend who managed a small diner looking for help, and a community group that assisted single parents in finding housing. "You're not alone," he said. "And you don't have to start from zero." That night, long after Mark left, Emily sat beside her sleeping son, letting the warmth of the room thaw not just her hands but the fear she'd been carrying. For the first time in a long time, she believed tomorrow could be different. Tomorrow could be better. A week later, she had a job. 2 weeks after that, she had a temporary apartment. She and Mark stayed in touch, not out of obligation, but out of a quiet connection that grew naturally. Sometimes he brought her son small gifts, sometimes they all ate dinner together after her shift at the diner. Kindness had opened a door, and now they were walking through it step by step. She would never forget the night she thought she'd sleep in the cold with her child. And she would never forget the man who whispered, "Not while I'm here," and meant every word. It wasn't just warmth he gave her, it was dignity, hope, and a chance to rebuild. And that's what real kindness looks like. Someone stepping forward when the world steps away, someone choosing to be the light in someone else's winter. And somewhere in the snowy streets of Toronto, another storm blew through, but this time, Emily wasn't afraid. She knew she and her son would be warm, safe, and cared for. Because kindness, even from a stranger, can change the entire direction of a life.